Okay, hi everyone, welcome back to today's live stream for Windows Server 2003. So I just want to share my screen. Okay, creating a new reverse lookup zone. The process of creating a reverse lookup zone is a little different because reverse lookup zones tie addresses to names. On the reverse lookup zone page, you can specify the reverse lookup zone's name in two ways. The easy way is to specify the network ID portion of the network the zone covers using the network ID radio button and field. The more complex but equivalent way is to fill in the name of the reverse zone itself. These two are mostly the same, just inverted. A network ID of 208.15.144 yields a reverse zone name of 144.15.208.in addr.arpa. Unless you're used to the old Unix method, use the network ID radio button. It's less likely that you'll make a mistake with that route. So you can see here figure 6.7, the reverse lookup zone name page of the new zone wizard. Once you've selected which network you want your zone to point to, you have to select a zone file just as you did when creating a forward lookup zone. You must also choose how to handle dynamic updates in the same way that you did with the forward lookup zone. So I'm just going to leave this exercise here because it's not really relevant. Setting zone properties. There are 6 tabs on the properties dialog box you get when you use the properties command on the forward or reverse lookup zone. You use the security tab only to control who can change properties and make dynamic updates to records on that zone. The other tabs are discussed in the following sections. The general tab. The status indicator and the associated pause button lets you see and control whether this zone can be used to answer queries. When the zone is running, the server can use it to answer client queries. When it's paused, the server won't answer any queries it gets for that particular zone. The type indicator and change button allow you to change the zone type between standard, primary, standard, secondary, and AD integrated. As you change the type, the controls you see below the horizontal dividing line will change too. The more interesting controls are the ones you see for the AD integrated zones. For primary zones, you'll see a field that lets you select the zone file name. For secondary zones, you'll get controls that allow you to specify the IP address of the primary servers. The replication indicator and change button allow you to change the replication scope. If the zone is stored in Active Directory, you can choose to replicate the zone data to all DNS servers in the Active Directory forest, all DNS servers in a specified domain, all domain controllers in the Active Directory main required if you use Windows 2000 domain controllers in your domain, and all domain controllers specified in the replication scope of the application directory partition. The Allow Dynamic Updates field gives you a way to specify whether or not you want to support dynamic DNS updates from compatible DHCP servers. As you learned in Chapter 4, the DHCP server or DHCP client must know about and support dynamic DNS in order to use it, but the DNS server has to participate too. You can turn dynamic updates on or off, or you can require that updates must be secured. By default, a standard primary zone won't accept dynamic updates, but the AD integrated zone will. You can change these settings at will. So you can see here figure 6.8, the general tab of the zone properties dialog box. This is the Start of Authority SOA tab. The options in the Start of Authority tab controls the contents of the SOA record for this zone. The serial number field indicates which version of the SOA record the server currently holds. Every time you change another field, you should increment the serial number so that other servers will notice the change and you get a copy of the updated record. The primary server and responsible person fields indicate the location of the primary NS for this zone and the responsible administrator respectively. The refresh interval field controls how often any secondary zones of this zone must contact the primary and get any changes that have been posted since the last update. The retry interval field controls how long secondary servers will wait after a zone transfer fails before they try again. They'll keep trying at the interval you specify, which should be shorter than the refresh interval until they eventually succeed in transferring zone data. The expires after field tells the secondary servers when to throw away zone data. The default of 24 hours means that a secondary server that hasn't gotten an update in 24 hours will delete its local copy of the zone data. The minimum default TTL field sets the default TTL for all RRs created in the zone. You can still assign different TTLs to individual records if you want. The TTL for this record field controls the TTL for the SOA record itself. So you can see here, figure 6.9, the Start of Authority tab of the Zone Properties dialog box. The Name Servers tab. The name server NS record for a zone indicates which name servers are authoritative for the zone. That normally means the zone primary and any secondary servers you configured for the zone. Remember, secondary servers are authoritative, read-only copies of the zone. You edit the NS record for a zone with the Name Servers tab. To be more specific, the tab shows you which servers are listed and you use the Add, Edit and Remove buttons to specify which name servers you want included in the zone's NS record. So you can see here, figure 6.10, the Name Servers tab of the Zone Properties dialog box, the Wins tab. The Wins tab allows you to control whether this zone uses wins forward lookups or not. These lookups pass queries that DNS can't resolve onto wins for action. This is also a useful setup if you're still using wins on your network. You must explicitly turn this option on with the Use Wins Forward Lookup checkbox in the Wins tab for a particular zone. So you can see here, figure 6.1, the Wins tab of the Zone Properties dialog box. The Zone Transfers tab. Zone transfers are necessary and useful because they're the mechanism used to propagate zone data between primary and secondary servers. For primary servers, whether AD integrated or not, you can specify whether or not your servers will allow zone transfers, and if so, to whom. You can use the following controls on the Zone Transfers tab to configure these settings per zone. The Allow Zone Transfers checkbox controls whether or not the server will answer zone transfer requests for this zone at all. When it's off, no zone data will be transferred. To any server setting allows any server anywhere on the internet to request a copy of your zone data. The only two servers listed on the Name Servers tab, the default limits transfers to only those servers listed in the Name Servers tab for this zone. This is a more secure setting than the default because it limits zone transfers to other servers for the same zone. The only to the following server's setting along with its corresponding IP address control gives you even more control because you can specify exactly which servers are allowed to request zone transfers. This list can be larger or smaller than the list specified on the Name Servers tab. The Notify button is for setting up automatic notification triggers that are sent to secondary servers for this zone. Those triggers signal the secondary servers that changes have occurred on the primary. That way, the secondary servers can request updates sooner than they would with their normally scheduled arrival. The options in the Notify dialog box are similar to those in the Zone Transfers tab. You can enable automatic notification and then choose either servers listed on the Name Servers tab or the following servers. So figure 6.12, the Zone Transfers tab of the Zone Properties dialog box. Configuring zones for dynamic updates. Dynamic updates enable DNS client computers to register and dynamically update the resource record with a DNS server whenever changes occur. This reduces the need for manual administration of zone records. The DNS service allows dynamic updates to be enabled or disabled on a per zone basis at each server. There are more subtitles, or I think there, that you may not have thought of though. Windows 2000 or XP client has a statically assigned IP address will attempt to register its IP address with a dynamic DNS server when the IP address changes or when the machine reboots. DHCP clients will update DNS records whenever an IP address assignment changes. For example, when a lease is renewed or issued, in both cases, the DHCP service on the client is responsible for sending the update for all IP addresses assigned to the machine, even those that aren't using DHCP. What about secure updates? Turning on secure updates has no initial effect on clients because they're always try unsecured updates first. If an unsecured update fails, the client will try again with a secure update. If that fails, then the update fails. Secure updates will not work on a client unless the client is in the computers folder in the Active Directory. What if you're not using Windows 2000 or XP clients? The Windows Server 2003 DHCP server can register DNS data for machines to which it issues leases. In this role, it's called a DNS proxy because it's acting on behalf of another set of machines. Although this gives you all your computer's access to dynamic DNS registrations, it opens some worrisome security issues because you must add the DHCP servers you want to act as proxies to the DNS proxy update group in Active Directory. This tells the OS that you want those DHCP servers to be able to register the clients, but it also means that any DHCP server running on AD controller has full access to the DNS registration information, meaning that a malicious DHCP client could potentially poison your DNS registration. So I'm going to leave this exercise here. Delegating zones for DNS. DNS provides the ability to divide up the namespace into one or more zones, which can then be stored, distributed, and replicated to other DNS servers. When deciding whether to divide your DNS namespace to make additional zones, consider the following reasons to use additional zones: a need to delegate management of part of your DNS namespace to another location or department within your organization, a need to divide one large zone into smaller zones for distributing traffic loads among multiple servers, improve DNS name resolution performance, or create a more fault-tolerant DNS environment, and need to extend the namespace by adding numerous subdomains at once, such as to accommodate the opening of a new branch or site. Each new delegated zone requires a primary DNS server, just like a regular DNS zone. When delegating zones within your namespace, be aware that for each new zone you create, you will need to replace in other zones delegation records that point to the authoritative DNS servers for the new zone. This is necessary both to transfer authority and to provide correct referral to other DNS servers and clients of the new servers being made authoritative for the new zone. I can leave that. Manually creating DNS records. From time to time, you may find it necessary to manually add resource records to your Windows Server 2003 DNS servers. Although dynamic DNS will free you from the need to fiddle with A and PTR records, other resource records, including MS records, require for the proper flow of SMTP email still have to be created manually. You can manually create a PTR, MX, SRV, and 15 other records types. There are only two important things to remember. You must right-click the zone and use either the new record command or the other new records command, and you must know how to fill in the fields of whatever record type you're using. For example, to create an MX record, you need 3 pieces of information: the domain, the mail server, and the priority. But to create an SRV record, you need several more. So we'll just leave this exercise. It's not really relevant to us. So I'm going to leave it here this evening for this live stream. Thanks for listening, and have a nice evening.